So, before we get into the episode, I'd like to do a few little housekeeping things. Linked below, you'll find my Shopify store where currently there are signed copies available of Behind the Scenes and also the Urban Grind t-shirt, the orange t-shirt that you guys saw me, or peach t-shirt that you guys saw me talking about in another video. So if you're interested in either of those things, the link for that is below. And now on to Eddie and Astrid. This second episode is going to be the last of this little check-in that we're doing with them. I know I left you guys right in the middle of it with them in the last episode, but I think that we're going to be able to come to a happy resolution for this couple. And so without further ado, let's get into it. Astrid. Married? Eddie. What the hell are you talking about? I asked, putting my book down like that was going to make me hear him better. Because surely I couldn't have heard what I thought I had. Never in the years we'd been together had that even been a consideration. Not that I was necessarily opposed, I just hadn't thought about it. For what? When we were perfectly fine, perfectly happy with our relationship and the iteration of it we'd defined for ourselves. So you don't want to be my wife? He asked, stepping fully into the room now, dropping his keys, wallet, and cell phone on the dresser before he started stripping down. I didn't say that. Where's this coming from? Did something happen? Did you hit your head? With his shirt half off, he stopped, glaring at me for a moment before he finished removing it. Ain't nobody making jokes with you, Asteroid, he said. I'm serious. We've been together for years, and that's what people do, right? I'm pretty sure that people get married because they want to be together forever, not because of how long it's already been. He shrugged, starting on his belt and jeans. I'm saying, you're not going anywhere. I'm not going anywhere. We might as well do this. Okay, Casey Brothers. What? Never mind. The point is that I'm not in a rush to jump and get married just because we might as well do this. You can't be serious, right? I asked, then finally swallowed the last of the wine left in my glass before I got up to seek out the rest of the bottle. Initially, I'd just been winding down, but it seemed this man was hell-bent on turning it into a need-based situation now. So you don't want to be my wife? He asked again, and again, I rolled my eyes. Seriously, I didn't say that. I understand it's not what you said, but it's definitely what I'm hearing. So would you mind clearing it up for me? Edison, where is this coming from? I thought you were on your gym of love. Not for nothing, I ain't going. I'll be forever hoeing. I remember you being very tickled by that. Eddie sucked his teeth. Asteroid, come on. You know that shit was a joke. Have I been hoeing? No, but it doesn't mean you don't want to. I'm telling you I don't want to by expressing a desire to get married. Oh, is that what this is? Because I thought it was we might as well, which sounds a hell of a lot like you feel like you have to, not that you want to. God damn it, woman, Eddie exclaimed, kicking his jeans off before he reached down to grab them and toss them into the hamper by the door. Do you want to do this? He said. Not even are we going to do it. Let's back up and you answer for me. Is that something that you want? Is it something you feel like you're missing? Well, of course it's not something I feel like I'm missing. How could I miss something that I didn't even know was on the table? Again, where is this coming from? Does it matter? It's a yes or no question. Is it something you want? I guess, I shrugged. And I don't want to hear that you don't like that answer or that it's not acceptable, because you can't put me on the spot with something like this and expect me to have a satisfactory answer off the dome. We've been free spirits for 4 fucking years. How am I supposed to know? That's the thing though. We haven't. We haven't been free spirits. We've been locked down as fuck, Eddie countered. And so I'm asking you, do we make that official or not? He explained, so angry and sexy in just his boxer briefs that I knew I wasn't supposed to be distracted by that right now, but I was. He just looked so good with all his gorgeous chocolate skin on display and his fresh haircut and the salt and pepper in his beard and at his temples. The signs of his age that his face didn't show. Huh. It wasn't that I thought he was old, because it definitely wasn't that, but it would be silly of me not to consider that wanting to be more secure and settled as we got older was a very human thing. Something that Eddie, even in the fullness of his queer, non traditional, self centered self, was not immune to. Of course, he wanted to settle down. Of course, he wanted to get married. Next up, he'd be talking about babies, and I couldn't blame him. Honestly, it was time for me to start thinking about those things too. I just hadn't. And he was bringing this on me out of nowhere, expecting an answer one way or another that I wasn't necessarily unsure of. I just wasn't particularly happy to give it without having thought it through, all the way through. Contrary to popular belief, when it came to these big life altering things, it wasn't just vibes for me. It was a true decision, a whole process that he wanted me to circumvent. Man, never mind, he said, growing further frustrated by my silence and disappearing from the doorway, presumably to take his shower. Part of me wanted to join him to ease whatever friction this awkward conversation between us had caused. But the other part of me, the more mature part, said that whatever he was feeling, I needed to let it happen. And honestly, I had some thinking through to do for myself. Hi, Edison. The sound of a female voice interrupted my thoughts, pulling my attention away from the paper in front of me. I looked up to find Amani standing there, still dressed like she was coming from work in her standard athletic gear. Shit, I cursed. Imani, my bad. I forgot you were coming today. Just come on in, I told her, formally inviting her into my office as if I hadn't left the door open for just anyone to come in anyway. Usually, I hated being disturbed while I was trying to sketch, but with so much on my mind, the sketching hadn't been coming easy. So really, I'd be glad for whatever interruption. Are you sure? She asked, always with that don't want to be a bother energy that grated on me for some reason. Amani was cool though. Honestly, one of very few people who I felt was just genuinely sweet, which was pretty atypical of what most people would think when they conjured tattoo artists in their mind. With her though, it was her appearance as well, especially when it was actually cool enough outside for her to keep her ink covered under full-length pants and long sleeves. I had never gotten the impression she was ashamed of it, not at all, because she was always on the market for a new piece. That was how I met her in the first place, because it seemed like she was in the shop every 6 weeks, the time it took for a piece to heal a bit and make sure her body was responding well before starting another. But I wasn't sure I'd ever seen her with any of the ink on display when she wasn't in the chair. Add to that the big brown eyes, copper skin, button nose, fluffy natural hair, and the girl was basically sunny. Pretty sure I had used a similar descriptor for Astrid before. And there I was, that easily, thinking about her again when I was trying to do anything but. After the way that conversation had ended between us last night, things had been very awkward this morning, with no true end in sight. So yeah, I was definitely sure Imani could come in and put literally anything else on my mind. Yeah, I told her. Come pull up a chair, I urged, gesturing at the empty space beside me. Imani took that instruction, practically bouncing into the office to grab a seat to pull up beside me at the wide drafting table. Okay, Sensei, what have you got for me today? I shook my head, sliding a sheet of paper in front of her and a few pencils her way. Free draw, I told her. You had work today, right? I'm sure something interesting happened there. Pull from that, make me a plan and a sketch. I want to know appropriate body placements, a breakdown of appropriate ink tones based on skin tone. From Twilight to Wesley Snipes, I want to see you make that tattoo work on anybody. Appropriate considerations for client comfort, time frame, follow-ups, aftercare. That's your agenda for today, I told her, pulling it off the top of my head, but these were all things she would need to know if she wanted to become the type of artist that could work at the shop herself. Every new artist I hired had to go through the same process, and there hadn't been one who was eager enough, serious enough about it since Tristan. He started at Distinct a few years ago and had actually done much of Imani's ink, the full sleeve on her arm and the larger canvas on her left side. That was what had gotten her so interested. She was immersed in this thing, and I was impressed by her attention to it. She was going to be a great artist. In fact, she hadn't even questioned any of my instructions. She just nodded, smiled, and went straight into it. A little disappointing, since this was one of the few times I would rather hear her never-ending stream of conscious style conversation. I wished I'd given her something that required less focus, selfishly, but instead of interrupting the training she was clearly serious about, I put my eyes back on my own paper, where nothing was happening. Where nothing happened for at least another 30 minutes, no matter which direction I tried to push my mind. Finally, I dropped my pencil and shifted my attention to where Imani had drawn a stylized crown, damaged and dented, but still regal. What the fuck was that about? I told her to draw something she saw at work today. Anyway, let me ask you something, I said, and her shoulders immediately perked up as she turned to me with a smile. Of course, anything. Okay, so let's say you were dating somebody, right? Very serious, like y'all live together. Oh, so this will require some suspension of disbelief on my part. She giggled. Okay, I'm ready. Give me the scenario. I chuckled. Well, like I said, y'all have been together for a while, but there's never been any discussion of a ring, the future, anything like that. Y'all were just going with the flow. This is about you and Astrid. Well, damn, is it that obvious? Imani, focus. This is about you, remember? She rolled her eyes. Sure, I'm ready. Okay. So, your guy or your girl, whatever, that part doesn't really matter. Your partner says to you, let's get married. What's your next step? Her eyes went wide. Well, I don't know, she said, her face wrinkling in confusion. He says this completely out of the blue? Maybe not completely, like... Okay, yeah, out of the blue. Oh, she's probably very confused, Edison, because you asked her out of the blue. Not about me and Astrid. Okay, but it is though, so would it be possible for us to like cut the pretense and I can just give you the advice it seems like you need? I don't need advice. But you do though, she countered. And I get it. You don't like know me like that. So, maybe talk to your mother or your sister or Viv or somebody. But yeah, advice, you definitely need that. Fine. Maybe she was right. But the very last thing I was about to do was talk to my mother or my sister or Viv about this because I wasn't trying to hear any of their mouths. Okay, so it is about me and Astrid. So come on with it, I urged. Tell me what you got. Imani grinned. Well, I'm going to assume that she did not have a favorable reaction to it. And I'm going to venture out on a limb and say that the reaction probably didn't have much to do with whether or not she actually wants to marry you. If it's something that wasn't even on the table and then suddenly here it is, that's a lot of pressure. Very confusing. It's like, okay, most people in this neighborhood don't own vehicles. There's a limited use for it. So that would be like you never even considering a car and then somebody jumping in your face saying, quick, tell me what kind of car you want me to buy for you. Tell me right now. How would you know? I'm pretty sure anybody would need time to prep for that. I mean, I haven't even known you that long, and as committed as you seem to your relationship, I wouldn't have pegged you as the marrying type either. What made you even bring it up? Man, I was at the barber shop and, oh God, there's the problem right there. I know you didn't let the shop gas you into something like that. No, not exactly. But the subject was brought up, and through that, I started thinking, and I figured we may as well do it since we're planning to be together anyway. Imani's face wrinkled into a frown. Is that what you said to her? Not exactly in those words, but I don't know, man. Kinda. Oh, so after marriage never being a topic, you brought it up to the woman you love as something you guys might as well do. Like switching your cable packages or something. Well, hell. When she put it like that. Look, she said, I'm not Astrid, so I don't have the capacity to really speak for her. But as a woman, I would suggest that if you do want to marry her, not just feel like you may as well, you should probably make that a little more clear to her. A lot more clear to her. And maybe then you get the answer that you're actually wanting. Okay, maybe she had a point with that. I definitely brought it up as if it were this simple thing or the natural next step for us. But the thing was, we didn't actually need a next step because we were happy where we were. Now that it was on the table, whereas it hadn't been before, I was really thinking about it now. And not that I felt it would suddenly make this huge change in our dynamic when we were already incredibly close, already lived together, all that. The thought of putting some weird ass ring she loved on her finger made me really happy. The thought of calling her my wife made me feel good. And the thought of our commitment being without question, even if it was just to signal it to everybody else since we already knew what it was, I'd be lying if I claimed that that shit wasn't a factor. It wasn't as if I considered asking her to marry me some sort of gift, some sort of consolation prize for having put up with me for the last few years. It was more like, damn, I love this woman enough not only to have committed myself in this thing for the last 4 years, but for something like this, something like marriage, to even be a consideration. It was a clear sign I saw her as my forever. And because of that, I wanted to make it official. The only issue was figuring out whether or not she was even close to the same page. Astrid. So, do you even want to get married? Quinn asked as we moved up a bit in line at Grown. I typically wasn't the ask somebody else kind of girl, but this shit with Eddie had me so frazzled I was doing all kind of things I'd never done before. Like thinking about calling him my husband. That's exactly the problem, Quinn, I told her, shaking my head. I don't actually know. We've been together for years, and it's not like I can see myself with anybody else. I love him, and I love to spend the rest of my life with him, so I guess I understand where he's coming from with that we might as well angle, but at the same time, there has to be a better reason than that, right? Quinn shrugged. Well, people get married for all kinds of reasons, some good, some not so good ones. We might as well isn't great, but if that's not paired with some sort of pressure from your families or society or thinking it's going to fix something that's wrong or missing in your relationship, it's not bad either. It's just not great. Okay, so what are some great ones? Well, you already covered one, right? Or two, actually. You love each other and you can see yourselves together forever. You want to be together forever. The two of you definitely complement each other well, and I've heard enough about your fights to know neither of you gets ugly with it, right? Immediately, I shook my head. No, never, I assured. Now, we definitely get on each other's nerves and piss each other off sometimes, but there's certain things you just don't do or say to somebody you love, so we don't play that. Right. Good. Quinn nodded. You guys are on the same page, like with the things you want in life in general? Now, that was a conversation we actually did have around the time we moved in together. We had a lot of the same interests, but a lot of different ones too. And before we made the decision to share space, we had to come to a place of some sort of agreement, which was easy enough with me having converted him to large parts of my lifestyle. After my affirmative answer, Quinn smiled. You trust him? Implicitly. Okay, well, I'm not telling you what to do here, but you're checking off pretty much all the boxes on the should I marry this person list. I guess the last thing to really think about would be whether or not you feel taken care of and your confidence in whether or not that'll continue. We stopped talking now that we were at the front of the line so we could order our smoothies. Quinn went with some pumpkin flavored monstrosity while I went with my customary green goddess. When I pulled out my phone to pay for the smoothies, Summer waved me off. Eddie called this morning, told me to be on the lookout for you. Make sure you had credit on your account so you're covered. She blessed me with a smile, then moved on to the next customer in the busy line, so I couldn't even properly argue about it. Not that that would have done anything. Quinn looped an arm through mine, beaming as she led me out of the fresh market. Well, I guess that answers that question, huh? Yeah. Not that it was really ever a question at all. For all his grumpy, old man yelling at kids on his lawn energy, that was yet another thing I could say for Edison. In his own way, the man adored me, and after living with that for years now, I truly couldn't see anything different. No, I didn't operate purely on vibes, but I did have gut feelings about things that didn't usually lead me wrong. The idea of being a wife, it had a good vibe. I'd already talked to Ari about it, and of course, she approved. She hadn't even been trying to hear any of my reasonings or objections. Her ass was practically already planning a wedding. I wouldn't be surprised if she'd already picked out a dress for herself and was on the hunt for clothing to fit whatever role her child was going to play in my wedding. Ariel knew me better than anybody. So if she was on board with this, and Quinn was on board with this, not that it mattered when it really came down to it. The fact of it was that even though this was a whole new consideration for me, even though it was something I never imagined, I was on board with it. And before I chickened out, I got my phone and shot Eddie a text to let him know. Very simple, very to the point. Yes, I'll marry you. He didn't text me back, but he knew when the party was, so I was confident that he would actually show up. He's going to show up. He's definitely going to show up. I mean, he was mad, but he wasn't that mad to not show up, knowing that my let's have a drink at the hideaway for your birthday ruse was really just to get him to this damn party. I wasn't in a blonde bob wig and expensive black lingerie like Beyonce in the Partition video for nothing. He better show up. As I looked around at the costume partygoers, I posed for a few pictures, gave out a few smiles, trying not to look as nervous as I felt. I was so distracted, though, that I walked right into somebody and almost stumbled over on my too tall heels before I was grabbed at the wrist to be balanced. Damn, Simeon commented as he helped me steady myself, giving me a once-over. Oh, let's hope my man has the same reaction, I grinned, then reached to pull him into a hug. I can't believe you actually showed up. Yeah, me either, he said, peering around at the room full of people he largely didn't know. By design. You went to the doctor today, right? I asked. How did it go? I was surprised to see him in any type of costume whatsoever, but very specifically the Connecticut Kings jersey he had on. He shrugged. They sent me to physical therapy, which was an experience, I guess. Well, good, I nodded. Are you going back? He shrugged. Debatable. I'm gonna go see what this bar is talking about. Damn, maybe it didn't go very well. I couldn't dwell on his problems, though. I had some of my own, like the fact that this party was in completely full swing and the guest of honor had yet to show up. I was right on the verge of being worried about it when I turned to the door and there he was. And all I could do was bust out laughing. I had made a very specific point of not getting ready for the party at home so Eddie wouldn't see my costume beforehand. I hadn't expected him to be in a costume at all. Bitch stole my look, he teased as he approached me, referring to the fact that we were both blondes right now. Please tell me this is temporary, I teased, before tugging at the silver metallic vest and pants combo he was wearing to complete his look as Cisco. I ain't that crazy, he laughed, pulling me into a hug and planting a kiss against my forehead. Did you get my text? I asked him, and he dropped his gaze to meet mine before pressing another kiss against my lips. I did. We didn't have an opportunity for any more discussion before it was time to move the party forward, singing happy birthday, bringing out the cake, and all that. And Eddie went along with it. No complaints, no sour looks, and I didn't even get the impression he was ready to call it a night, which I'd been fully expecting from the time he walked in. He just had a good time. Once the DJ started winding things down, Eddie pulled me back into his arms for a slow dance, positioning us in a quiet place for privacy. So, you want to marry me, huh? He said, making me grin. Yeah, I think so. Here you go with that I think so again, he chuckled. Well, I said, looking up to meet his eyes, it depends on why you really want to do this. You still haven't told me where this came from. He averted his gaze, and I followed it to where Nix and Charlie were cuddled close together, and I rolled my eyes. Seriously? They broke up the first time over not getting married, so you think that's what I'm gonna do? No. He shook his head. Their shit doesn't have anything to do with it. It just got me thinking about our future and what I wanted. And when it came down to it, what I wanted, what I want is you. You sure? Asteroid, you know me. I don't do a goddamn thing I don't want to do. That was true. And it was just the reminder I needed to sink even more comfortably into his arms, knowing that whatever happened with us, we were in a good place for it to move forward. Eddie grabbed my wrist, and I felt the subtle change of cold metal touching my skin. I pulled out of his grip, holding up my arm to see what he'd put on me. A bracelet. What is this? I asked, even as my fingers slid over the engravings in the metal band to where an Adinkra love symbol was etched out of the metal in the middle. This is me knowing that the traditional engagement ring might not really be your style, he said right in my ear as he pulled me close again. This is some type of sustainable metal something or other with the love symbol in the middle set with moonstone, because that just felt very Astrid. My eyes went wide, shooting up to meet his. Eddie, are you proposing to me right now? Absolutely not. He shook his head, pulling me even closer to drop his head to mine and speak against my lips. You already said yes, remember? Ah! And there we have it, a perfect non-proposal between Eddie and Astrid. It's crazy because you guys know, if you follow me and if you've asked me about follow-ups for couples, you know that I don't do follow-ups for couples. But I actually, if there was any one couple that I could say that I heard the most about wanting something like this for, it was Eddie and Astrid. And I definitely didn't do this out of, because people requested it. It was because they came to me, and they had something more to say, and because they had more to say, I wanted to offer that up for you guys to be able to hear it. Out of all of my couples, I feel like let me back up. You guys know that I'm not particularly concerned with the traditional happily ever after for a couple. And it's not because I don't believe in happily ever afters. I just don't believe that they have to look any certain way. And for me, for all of my couples, when I leave them at the end of the book, it's in my mind that they're together and they're good, and they're going to be together and they're going to be good no matter what comes their way. And so it's admittedly a little frustrating for me when readers come to me and say that they're worried about a couple, or that they're concerned that the couple isn't going to make it or anything like that, because I feel like it's a projection. And it's part of why I don't. It's part of why I don't honor the request for follow-ups on the couples, because I've already told you how they're doing. I've already told you that they're good because they were good when I left them. And so anything else is projection. But for Eddie and Astrid, they gave this to me and I felt it. And at first I thought, well, this is pointless. This is, they're good. There's no need to revisit them or anything more. And this was after I wrote this. This was after I wrote this short. But it's just cute to me. It's just sweet to me. And it's just, to me, shows how much they love and really understand each other, really get each other. Even though Eddie, came out the blue with this, let's get married, meet me at the altar, we might as well do this type of thing. He knows his woman and she knows her man. She knew something like, okay, what happened? Did you hit your head? And so I'm not going to ramble about this for too much longer, but I just wanted to give that little bit. I do have another Storytime of the Heights, maybe 2 more Storytime of the Heights. The next one will be a completely new couple, and that one will only be 1 episode. Maybe we'll get it this week. Maybe it'll be next week. Who knows? But again, it is still set in this Halloween time of year, this fall time of year. So we'll see what happens. But anyway, as always, thank you guys for listening. Thank you guys for supporting me through these different artistic endeavors, and I hope you enjoyed. Bye.